Thank you for being so prompt for this very informative discussion with my colleagues here on my left. But before we continue, just a couple of quick house rules, if we may. Mobile phones, please. Some of you may need to have them on. If you can put them on silent. And Michael, if yours goes off again, I will charge you £40 for the insurance charities of which I am a director. So I don't believe there is going to be a fire alarm today. If there is, will you please just make your way outside very quickly and we'll convene opposite by the Willis building. As I say, these events will be podcast. They are eligible for CPD, whether you attend today in person or whether you actually download the podcasts. Please can you tell your colleagues and workmates that they can do this and listen to this, and it's good CPD all round. Feedback forms, there are some feedback forms on the chairs. Will you please complete those to make sure that we're doing the things that you really need, and any suggestions for the programme next year, we'll be grateful to receive them. So today we have this presentation. It's a joint presentation between Ptarmigan and Wildnet, and I'm very pleased to see both Kevin and Gary here. I've got the clicker and we're going to pass this around between us. So we've got Kevin Kettrick from Ptarmigan. I was asking Kevin for a biography. He's been around a few years, like most of us up here on the top table. He's very heavily involved in cyber risks and also helped set up the cyber broker Safe Online. He's actually come over to the light side of the industry and he's set up Ptarmigan underwriting, and I think we'll see some really good stuff coming through from Kevin as things go forward. Between us, a rose between two thorns, is Gary Watts. Gary is the Chief Commercial Officer of Wildnet and is part of the executive team who have recently acquired this particular business. Gary, again, is quite long in the tooth, like the rest of us up here. Over 30 years' experience supplying software and services solutions for the financial services sector. He's also been CEO of a software company. These are our objectives so that you can qualify for your CPD. I won't actually read them to you. I'm sure you can read that. And as we go through the presentation, I'm sure these will be met. And then, of course, what will happen is when Gary finishes, he'll actually go through these objectives as we go forward. So I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to pass the clicker over to Kevin, and we'll ask Kevin Kettrick can please start his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And Peter did pronounce it correctly. It is, in fact, ptarmigan, not parmesan, and is a hardy bird found in the Highlands of Scotland. Good afternoon. My name's Kevin Kettrick from Ptarmigan Underwriting Agency. We're a two-man team of underwriters consisting of myself and David Leaper, who's at the back there. David underwrites a financial institutions account in slightly non-traditional areas of the world, and I specialise in worldwide cyber and technology errors and omissions insurance with an emphasis on writing business in the United States. We're located on the 4th floor in the Lloyd's building and are backed by several Lloyd's syndicates and into Hanover. We've been trading now for over 2 years and enjoy an excellent relationship with our sponsoring broker, Lucas Bettis. So, once we had chosen the office space, the desks, the chairs, sorted out compliance, obtained backing from our capacity providers, and traded for a year or so, someone mentioned to me, what about an IT system? Excel spreadsheets have worked well for us so far, I said, so why do we need an expensive IT system? The reality was we needed something more than just Excel spreadsheets. Okay, so what were our day one requirements for IT? We needed a system specifically designed for MGAs, obviously, and one that would work financially for a small entity like ours, one that would be fast and convenient to implement. We needed a system that provided the most simple end-to-end insurance administration platform. It needed to be cost-effective. It would have to be scalable, secure, and provide us with a measurable return on investment. We were looking to work with an independent, dedicated provider of innovative software solutions to the MGA insurance market, which we found with Gary. Our end goal was obviously to obtain that competitive advantage whilst reducing operational costs and increasing processing efficiencies and delivering a better broker service levels. We needed the system to be flexible for our business to grow. Ideally, we wanted to work with a professional IT company that had a shared knowledge and a basic understanding of our products, and one that would be eager to deliver a fully functioning and powerful system within our specified time frame. Basically, we wanted to make life as easy as possible for our brokers to conduct business with us whilst increasing our bottom line. So drilling down further, key day one considerations for us were as follows. We obviously needed a client database so we could enter details of new business opportunities somewhere and do away with the usual Excel spreadsheets. An online quoting system. It was vitally important to streamline our front-end processing of business inquiries, as these were again done in the traditional manual way with pen and paper. Yes, pen and paper. It was vital that we had access to workflow tools that would speed up our entire quote buying process and enable us to get documentation to our brokers as quickly as possible. Document generator for certificates and policies. Currently, the majority of the policies that David and I handle were written and prepared by the Lloyd's brokers themselves on open market accounts, which, whilst the broker could justify producing such documentation for premiums in excess of, say, £10,000, anything less than this figure would make it uneconomical for the broker to handle. I had specifically targeted SME business as my sweet spot, and so if I was going to attract books of SME business, which I knew many of our brokers in the cyber market had, I would have to generate the documentation for them. We wanted a document management system that stored our quotes and email communications in one place. Product builder. We identified that to obtain that competitive advantage over our peers, we needed to have the ability to launch new products and to add new endorsements, etc. The system's architecture had to be built with flexibility in mind. The deployment of any alterations or amendments to our product suite and the rating matrix that sits behind such products needed to be flexible enough to allow the system's users to make those changes without the assistance of expensive IT contractors on day rates. Configurable reports. We definitely wanted these reports to show our capacity providers what types of business and territories we were writing the business in. We wanted to be able to produce these quickly. Flexible pricing model. Yes, cost, always a key consideration for a startup, something I know the next speaker, Mr. Gary Watts from Wildnet, will touch upon later. We needed a cost model that worked for us. We eventually opted for individual user licenses, dismissing the fee per transaction model, which I'm sure Gary will go into. So, with no inflexible legacy systems to contend with, the path was clear to explore what was available in the IT market space. Reviewing which IT systems were available to MGAs was a daunting task. I'd reviewed this IT space some years previously, and I again embarked on a series of meetings with at least 5 suppliers in order to assess their offering and measure their capabilities. My findings concluded that most of the IT companies I met with had demonstrated systems that ticked the majority of the boxes in terms of document production, board rows, etc. However, it soon became clear to me that these vendors normally contracted with clients that had IT budgets running into the hundreds of thousands, not for a startup like us. All I was seeking was a sensible price point for a startup MGA and a pricing model which would be commensurate with our future growth curve. Having a reasonably clear understanding of my IT needs, I was conscious that I needed to select an IT vendor that would not just be a supplier of software, but I needed a partner whose offering was flexible enough to grow with our business. I needed to know that introducing a new product would not take 6 months to launch, or that I had the option to test the market with a new product launch on a relatively cheap trial basis. Other questions that sprang to mind were, Would the system allow for a broker portal using branded or white label approach? What if we wanted to sell the products into affinity groups or direct to businesses? Would it be easy to integrate third-party software that was capable of interfacing with my new IT system? I was delighted to learn that all these goals could be achieved in time. Having decided to push the button on the system development, we sat down with the IT vendor's experienced team of individuals to focus on our main objectives for the system. We scoped out our system requirements and started working towards various project phase milestones. After regular meetings, all the ticks were put against the project objectives agreed upon, and we went live. Benefits of the system, of our new system. So what were the benefits of our new system? For me, the number one has to be service. Yes, service. Such a cliche, I know. But I've been on the other side of the fence as a broker, and there's nothing more frustrating than waiting for an underwriter to respond on a piece of new business, which he has probably had in his inbox for at least 3 days or more, while at the same time being constantly chased by the agent or the client for an immediate response. Being fobbed off by an underwriter puts you as the broker in a difficult position, whilst trying desperately to manage the client or agent's expectations. Eventually, the underwriter declines to write the business, and you as the broker lose credibility with your client or agent. It's not a great position to be in. Our system will deliver that service to all of our brokers, even if it is a declinature. The speed of the automation of the quote buying document production process should alleviate the frustration that brokers experience on a daily basis, which inevitably should lead to an increased flow of business to the MGA. After all, brokers generally only do business with either those companies where they have an individual relationship or where they receive excellent response times on business opportunities. My goal is to try and achieve both. A fast, personal, high-quality service to brokers, I believe, is key to any MGA success. Operational efficiency. I've reviewed my previous method of entering the insurer's details onto our system. It appears that I personally manually type the client details 3 times, let alone the accounts team in Manchester and the board row management team in London. The duplication of data entry is a potential point of failure and leads to increased manual overheads, something a startup can well do without from both a cost and compliance standpoint. It is vitally important to have a single point of data entry rather than rekeying the same data into numerous IT systems. Mistakes will happen. Like any MGA, we needed to provide accurate management information on a regular basis. We needed a system that could not only produce the usual premium reports, but a system that could dissect the premium numbers by broker, by individuals within each broker, by audit code, by hit ratios, by territory, by month, quarter, by year, and then compare with previous months, quarters, years, etc. Thankfully, the system now delivers this at the press of a button. Whilst it's important to see the income being generated in these formats, it's equally important to be able to identify the quality of business being produced by each broker. So we introduced the claims data to sit alongside the premium data. Now we can truly measure which broker is producing the quality business and see the trends in terms of business volume by broker. Very valuable information when it comes to deciding who you should align yourself with. After all, profitability is the lifeblood of any business. This dashboard facility allows us to track important key performance indicators in real time in a customizable format and displays the data in simple graphical format. Product rating, self-configuration ability. A great deal of configuration of our rating matrix and product customization can now be done in-house, giving us unique up-to-date wordings and allowing us to quickly alter our rates if required. The self-configuration capability empowers our business to the way we want to trade. We can now get new products to the market within weeks, not months, and without having to incur huge infrastructure costs. Accurate bordereau production. All of our bordereau reports are produced on the mandatory Lloyd's bordereau format which can, amongst other things, handle multi-currency risks as well as the collection and monitoring of insurance tax data. Another one I've added, which was claims management. Whilst we certainly recognise the potential benefits of having an end-to-end claims management solution, we have at this stage of our development decided not to implement it just yet, but will in time. Broker portal. Providing your broker channel with access to their own proprietary rates and policy wordings is becoming more and more commonplace and is a function that more brokers are looking for. I appreciate it does not work for all classes of business, but it certainly would assist those MGAs that offer more commoditised product lines. With rates in most classes of business fairly static or indeed declining, the broker portal model should at least continue to enrich your broker relationships. We should be launching this to our brokers in the next few months. Other future needs. Our system, being cloud-based, of course, gives us the scalability for future growth, and again, this should minimise any future expensive infrastructure costs. So in summary, after a smooth implementation process, the key benefits to our new system are that we now have the ability to rapidly deploy and integrate product lines onto the system within weeks. The platform is fully scalable and customisable and able to integrate with CRM software and other business intelligence systems if required. It's also highly configurable to suit our own needs. Our rating engine and forms engine has flexibility. We can update the rates and the algorithms to follow market trends. The forms engine allows us to create manuscript endorsements. Importantly, it eliminates rekeying of data more than once. It's also been designed to meet corporate governance and audit requirements. The system's workflow tools allow for the automatic invitation of renewals, for the monitoring of outstanding subjectivities and outstanding premium collection. This has been achieved through an integrated email alert system between us and the broker, with status reports being generated to allow us to monitor what is outstanding and what requires our attention. If required, we can use different panels of insurers to back our product range, thus giving our brokers the choice of insurance carrier and policy coverage. There has also been no need for any additional hardware or other third-party software in this process. It generates all of our quotes, policy documentation, and invoices in PDF. Using the document management system, we can now electronically store all our documents and index them by client name, type of policy, etc., avoiding the expensive, time-consuming integration with another third-party image or scanning product. Our automated diary system and central repository for all our client records and email communications is now in one place, finally. All of our data is secured and backed up in the cloud. We now use pre-configured reports using the dashboard, giving us broker performance metrics and aggregate tracking if required. We can restrict access to the system's users. We can restrict access of system users to the agreed permission levels. We can manage financial data in real time and export into various formats, including Excel. More generally, the largest benefit of the system is the increase in user efficiencies and increased productivity. By servicing our brokers quicker, the result has been greater overall broker client satisfaction, which in time will lead to increased profitability. So in conclusion, I personally believe the success of most MGAs will be attributable to their adoption of some type of online system. Strategically, it's a huge decision, but no MGA can survive with antiquated, rigid code-based systems. It's absolutely critical for our survival as an MGA to be able to react quickly and carve out that niche in new product lines and gain that competitive edge before our competitors have had time to respond. So it's time to cut loose from the old paper world and Excel spreadsheets and embrace the amazing technology that is out there. I'll now hand you over to Gary, who can tell you all about that technology.
Thanks, Kevin. Right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just sort of looking around the audience. I know there's a number of faces that I recognise that are in here. I have been around the market, just a bit of background for me, for some time, since the late 70s. And I actually finished up, I was originally the global non-life sales director at Sherwood International. I know there's a number of sort of ex-Sherwood customers in the room. And I actually am now part of the new management team at Wildnet, which bought the business from the original private equity backers in September of last year. So we're now 95% owned by that management. It's people that have been around the market for a long time, and we intend to be around for a long time going forward. So what I'm going to cover today, I don't actually intend to give a detailed appraisal of what it is that we do. I think Kevin touched on some of those things. But if you think about the market that you guys are in, if you look at sort of what's happening with MGAs and the explosion in the number of MGAs and the increasingly important role that you and your peers are playing in the distribution and supply chain of insurance, what I want to talk about today is, in that dynamically fast-moving world, just to focus on a couple of things that Wildnet are doing that are equally disruptive in terms of the software vendor and supplier space. So I want to focus some time around our financial model, the way that we seek to engage, rather than talking about functionality and process of our software. Over time, if anyone feels the need that they would like to see that, then of course we'll be more than happy to do it. All right. So Wildnet, at a glance, we've been around since 1998 and have operated exclusively, and we still do, in the commercial lines and specialty lines market space. The key sectors for us are MGAs, third-party administrators and commercial lines carriers, and also specifically looking at having some specific propositions based around incubators. So, if you think about the explosion in MGAs, there are now more and more incubators that are providing supportive services to that market space, and we do have a specific proposition which I'll cover later. So we have a large selection of customers that are representative of MGAs and of carriers and also of brokers, actually. So looking at and I'm not going to dwell on this because all of you guys know this, but looking at a sort of a typical supply chain, so looking from insurer through to insured, and looking at whether you're going through an intermediated channel, whether you're actually selling insurance product directly to the insured, whether you're using an MGA, or indeed whether you're using an MGA and a broker and then backing that to a local MGA. So where do the Wildnet products sit in that space? And we have Wild Commercial, which is our insurance carrier solution that supports that distribution of product across all of those channels. So whether you're doing it through an MGA, whether you're doing it through a broker, or whether you're selling direct to the insured, that's the space that Wild Commercial sits. And then MGA Professional, which is our specific MGA solution, does exactly the same job, but actually controlling distribution of that insurance product through brokers, or indeed directly to affinity groups, or through local MGAs. So that's the space that we play. In terms of looking at what the solution does, and this is a real sort of 30,000-foot view, I don't intend to get into detail here, but I'm happy to take questions in the Q&A session at the end. But effectively, the 6 areas that I've covered here is the main guts of the proposition. So we're looking at being able to support the distribution of insurance products across multiple channels. And we do that as Kevin was referring to, through a series of things which we call portals. Those portals will either be private portals, so those which are supporting specific or multiple brokers, or public portals, which are very different in their structure, that would enable you to sell directly to insureds or directly to infinity groups through a public portal. We deal with what we call product manufacture, and I always look at insurance product as really being no different to the development of any other product out there in the space. Is the ability for you to be able to bring a new solution to market quickly and cheaply and in a timely fashion. And I'll cover some of the innovative stuff that we do in that space. As Kevin spoke about, right the way through the whole rating and quoting process, through binding and issuance, the administration functions of dealing with your midterm adjustments and endorsements, and then right the way through to bordereau production. So those 6 components all form part of the Wildnet core MGA professional solution. And then wrapping those are really 3 optional components, that being integrated workflow, which can be workflow that exists not just within those 6 functions, but enables you to control workflow in functions that would exist outside of the MGA professional solution. Yeah. We also have fully integrated MI dashboards, analytics and reporting, which can come either pre-packaged for views of data that we think would typically be used by MGAs, or in fact tailored in-house by yourself. So everything that we're seeking to do is about empowerment of you as a business, rather than operating traditionally as perhaps some software providers have, which is about how do we generate services from you as a business and actually grow our revenue streams doing that. So we're all about empowerment, and what we're interested in is selling access to our software, not selling long-term, costly, elaborate services. And I'll cover how we deal with some of that later. And then lastly, but certainly by no means least, is we have some clever technology which enables us to integrate what we're doing from an underwriting process perspective, so from product manufacture through to distribution, and enables you to integrate that in the case that you have already invested heavily in some back office or mid office solution. Yeah? So I talked about being around this market space since the late 70s. I took some time out of the insurance world actually, and ran a software business which operated in the investment management and investment banking space. And I made that jump in 2005 and then came back into the market recently. So I was out for 10 years. There were systems out there which were legacies when I left the market that are still being used today. Yeah? So the ability to be able to ensure that you don't have software redundancy and we don't force bigger buying decisions on you is actually solved by how we do some of this integration stuff, and that's quite a key component of what we offer. So beyond that, Kevin spoke about claims processing and broker accounting. Those are not part of our core offering. It's not to say that we don't do those, but what we do is to try and compete in a space where we think we deliver world-class services and world-class products, and that's really in that manufactured distribution space. If you, as an MGA, if you have claims authority, then we can actually deal with that, but those are optional modules that we're able to provide to you, okay? So I'm going to spend more time on this slide probably than any of the others actually, because I think the whole sort of what I would call disruptive methodology that we bring to bringing solution to market is quite an important thing to speak about. Because looking around the room, I would dare say that there are people that are involved in organisations that are at various stages of their gestation. So, those organisations that have been around and running for a while might have multiple binding authorities already in place, are looking to add new ones. There may be people that are in start-up operations that are running on spreadsheets still around this one. In fact, I know that's true because there were some conversations that I was having over sandwiches earlier that people are still doing that. The stories that I'm about to tell you are equally important whether you're an established player or whether you're a start-up operation, because I think the approach that we take does bring some real value. So looking at what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to tell you how much this stuff costs. If you want to ask me one-on-one, I'm perfectly happy to cover that, but I know that I've got some competitors in the room as well. So not sticking the price book up on the screen there was probably a sensible move. But what I am going to do is to take you through some of the tenets of that pricing model and why we do it the way that we do. So firstly, we have an all-encompassing cloud-based or SaaS model which includes everything that you require to support the front and mid-office of an MGA. So that one-off subscription fee covers software licenses, support and maintenance, covers hardware acquisition and the hosting of that. So if you're a small start-up operation, the last thing that you want to have to do is to build an IT infrastructure to support your business. We become your partner that deals with that IT infrastructure on your behalf, and you pay a single monthly price for that, which is tied in to the volume of business that you push through our software. Yep. So if you're a start-up operation and you've got one binding authority and this is your first year of underwriting, our pricing model will reflect the maturity of your business and will give you no cost barriers to entry, because we've got no capital expenditure items in our pricing model. This is all about building this infrastructure and this platform into your operating expenditure, all right, which is a big change to the way historically how some people have approached this. Yep, looking at the implementation process, which is another cost factor that you have to consider, is the approach that we've taken is based upon, and we have an underpinning methodology, which today doesn't really give me enough time to go into that in detail. But again, so I'm happy to cover that on a one-to-one. But you have total price, timescale and cost transparency. So we'll look at the risk classes that you're writing, we'll look at the number of binding authorities that you have in place, and then using our methodology, we'll put it through an algorithm. Sounds awfully complex, it's actually a spreadsheet. I just prefer to call it an algorithm than a spreadsheet. And effectively what that does, that gives us a price for you to deliver that software within a fixed time frame, wrapped with a whole host of service SLAs. So what does that mean to you? That means you get absolute price visibility, you know how long it's going to take to deliver, and there's no opaqueness about that pricing model at all. Yeah? So what we say it will cost, we wrap that with service SLAs, and that's what we'll deliver to you in that time frame at that price. If you then want to add further binders, further risk classes to that as your business grows, absolutely the same transparency. Yep. So if you want to add this, it will take that long, it's this fixed price, and that's what's delivered. For organisations that have multiple MGAs as part of that operation, we have volumetric discounting, which we share up front, so you know exactly what you're going to get. And if there's anyone, is anyone in the room who's sort of involved with what I would loosely term an incubator at present. So where they're acting as a service provider on behalf of a number of MGAs? No? Okay, but I'll cover this point quickly. But effectively what we do there is our price book is actually totally open to an MGA incubator. So if they're looking to provide managed services which are not just about are they going to provide accounting services, are they going to provide claims processing services, but they can actually take our software and bake that into that price book of services that they offer and actually charge that directly to you. So they effectively become the organisation that is putting our product and services out there. So it's a different route to market, but it does mean that they can themselves offer price incentives for MGAs to use the service offerings that they have. Right, so what are the benefits of that approach? So the key tenets of what it is that we do. So a full cloud-based or SaaS model, which is a single price for all of the software that you need. Yeah, the price is absolutely aligned to the success, maturity, and the volume of business that you're pushing through the software. And all of that is based around an OPEX model, not a CAPEX model. Yeah, and all of the services that we deliver are not T&M, fixed price, fixed timescale, and all wrapped with service level agreements. So what does that mean to you as the potential purchaser? So you have complete cost delivery transparency. So there's nothing that we would seek to charge you that you are not already aware of up front, has not formed part of your budgeting process, has not formed part of your planning process. We offer a fully managed service which enables you to grow over time. New binding authorities, new classes of risk that you're writing, more volume, and all of that, because we're doing it within a cloud-based sort of SaaS service, doesn't come with any step costs. It's all driven off of the amount of gross written premium that you're pushing through that software. Yep, it gives you competitive agility, because what we're able to do is to bring products to market quickly. So you describe the product that we have, we put it through our methodology. That says it's good for a simple product that might be measured in a small number of weeks to a very, very complex product that might actually be measured in 12, 13, 14 weeks. But we will guarantee it. It gives you reduced time to market and a lower cost of entry and reduced commercial risk, because in this fast-moving world, you know, I was speaking to a number of carriers over the last sort of month or so, and one of them particularly saying that we're launching new products almost on a weekly basis. Yeah, so either across territories or in specific territories in new risk classes that they're writing. They expect that somewhere between 40 and 50% of those products that they launch, they will not be writing in 18 months' time. So this ability to be able to get into a market quickly at a very visible cost, which means that you can get in, test the water, if it's successful, drive on, push more volume through it, or actually take a decision to get out. And what you haven't got is massive capital cost that's preventing you from having that agility. Yeah. The software will support both upstream and downstream multiple channels. So, for example, that could be either an individual carrier or a consortium or a panel of carriers which had a specific website, a portal which you were doing your business off the back of, or you were distributing those products through specific private portals to individual brokers or directly to infinity groups or the public at large, insureds at large. We support all of that from a single solution. Yeah. And most importantly, you guys take risk for a living. That's what you do as insurers. What we're about is actually removing that risk from some of the IT choices that you make. And we do that in many ways by putting our money where our mouth is. Yeah? So having disruptive pricing models, having fixed price services, and actually wrapping all of that with service level agreements, which we're happy to stand by and deliver upon. So looking sort of briefly at what the objectives of today's session were, I think Kevin sort of very well covered the identifying day one needs, looking at future needs, balancing the need to have software with a price point that enables a start-up business to be able to flourish. And I've talked about some of the ways in which we achieve that. I think, Peter, what we're now going to do is to go into a Q&A session, and I'll be happy to take any more detailed questions during that, or indeed at the end of the session when we finish. Yeah?
Gary, thank you very much for that. And Kevin, thanks very much. If you can show your appreciation, please. Thank you very much indeed. This is now your venue, so if we have any questions from the floor, I think we have a mic, which Jane will come along. If you can just wait for the mic to arrive. No questions? Okay, let me kick one off then, if I may. Gary, you talked several times about bringing new product to market, and you mentioned it can take a few weeks to up to 13. What is the average life on an existing product when you're bringing something different into the market?
Right. What I'll talk about is the process that we go through. So effectively, this all starts with, we have a questionnaire which is really looking at the shape and the attributes of a product. So, is it multi-section, multiple insurable interest? Is it single section? What's the taxation rules? That goes through this algorithm that we were talking about, and coming out of that will be a fixed time and a fixed cost. Yep. So we have currently 6 different categories of complexity in that matrix, and at the front end we literally are talking a matter of weeks, and at the back end we're looking at somewhere between 12 to 14 weeks to deliver a very, very complex, multi-section, multi-coverage, multiple insurable interest risk. Okay. So that's the time spread.
Fine. Yep. So at least you've got the breakdown. Jeff?
Sorry, actually, Kevin, what problems did you have with Wildnet, or did you not?
Sorry, say again?
Did you have any problems?
With Wildnet? None spring to mind, I'll be honest with you. No, not really, no. All went rather smoothly, actually.
And the delivery time for you?
The issue is always around the testing, and often, well, obviously it's down to us to do that, and that, as ever, you're trying to write business, and of course at the same time you need to dedicate hours, if not, well, certainly days and weeks to testing. So that kind of probably pushed it back, if anything, but that was down to us.
So contract was signed in October, and Kevin was live at the beginning of February. All right. So I wouldn't necessarily be too apologetic about that. I actually think that for a start-up operation with no existing IT function, that's a fairly rapid rollout. Yeah.
With Christmas in between.
With Christmas in between, yeah. And a bit of skiing as well.
A bit of skiing.
A bit of skiing, right, thank you. Yes.
Heather Thomas, EC3 Legal. Lloyd's has got a project at the moment with the FCA to require binding authority holders to produce a lot of MI around conduct risk to prove that the customers, particularly personal customers, are getting what they paid for. And they've published a list of the management information they would normally expect people, binding authority holders, to produce. Can your software tackle that as an optional extra?
Yes, it can. I mean, I think looking at the whole MGA process is that organisations have different shapes. So some will work as part of a group where they're purchasing services from that group. Some will be standalone operations. And the functional needs that they have varies, depends upon the shape of the entity that we're talking about. So that's why we don't do that for everybody, because some people are already getting that service through things like incubators. But the the data that's available for MI information and comes with, as I said, pre-packaged views and reports or tailorable, enables us to do exactly what you've spoken about. Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Any more from the floor? Just another one, if I may. There's been a great deal made about the cloud, and we've seen some interesting photos come through the cloud after it's been hacked. How secure is the cloud?
Well, the cloud is all things to all men. There is no such thing as a cloud. Yeah. So whether you're looking at whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud, it's absolutely why I was making the differentiation that you would have in terms of functionality within a portal as to whether you were doing that through brokers or whether you were doing that to the public. But, we have all of the certification that it's possible to have in terms of being able to provide security around the cloud. If everything was 100% safe, Kevin wouldn't be as successful as he is at writing cybercrime risks. Yeah. So we're certified. We've passed that accreditation. We've been through that process with some exceedingly large carriers. You only had to look at some of the names that were up on that board. And the cloud itself is as safe as any piece of emerging technology ever can be.
Well, one of the problems, of course, is we have seen some quite horrendous fines being levied by the regulator when certain individuals have taken data out of the UK and it's been accessed. And one of the problems is this cloud is moving around and it is accessed by people who are very astute. Then it can create problems because obviously the intellectual property of Kevin is paramount on this.
Yes, I mean, security is one thing. Cite it where you cite that service and those servers is something totally different. Yeah. So Wildnet itself is not a hosting company. Yeah. So we work with hosting organisations that are global that can provide a service footprint, although it's in the cloud, but that's still a series of servers that can be UK-based or overseas-based, depending upon where your territory, what territories you're covering, and the respective security and confidentiality laws that are in place. Yeah. So.
Okay, fine, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Yes, one more. Just bear with me. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi there.
Question about testing. I'm assuming you're not actually writing new code when you add clients. It's more about configuring the system.
Yeah.
So why do you need to test?
Why does Kevin need to test? It's not.
Yes.
There you go.
Kevin, yes, I think it's probably
to
one
be
for
honest,
you.
the link, the bit we had to test was making sure the board row that we had put together actually worked. So it pulled across the right data and populated the right spots in the Excel spreadsheet for us to make sure it was in a presentable format to go to our capacity providers. So that was probably the biggest bit of testing, to make sure the data was correct, the numbers were right, etc.
So you're talking about testing in the context of the cloud, yeah?
No, sorry, from a client's point of view. So you built them a system and it's more about checking the output's correct rather than checking the system works.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and also that's very much dependent upon, are you taking the service as a cloud-based service or an on-premise service, yeah? Because as soon as you step out from what the cloud brings in terms of everyone running on a single version of the software, which is executed at the point in time that you use it, that's very different to having an on-premise solution which still needs to be installed on hardware that might be running in an insurance carrier's business. Yeah, so and we don't force people to go down a SaaS or a cloud route. We do provide on-premise solutions as well. So the testing that you have to do is very much dependent upon what you're taking, how you're taking it, and the protocols that you've got in place in your own organisation. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
One last question. obviously keen to go outside and have another cup of coffee. Okay, so thank you very much indeed. I'll bring this session to a close. We've got a couple of quick things to go before you run off. First of all, there are the evaluation forms on your chairs. If you could please look at them and fill them in and pass them back to Jane and myself. We actually have another market briefing, which is coming up on the 25th of March. This one will not be here. It will be at the offices of Clyde's, 138 Houndsditch. But, of course, we've got our compliance and finance forums on the 24th. And there is, of course, a prize draw. And, yes, we'll ask Gary to...
No, I'm certainly not.
You can't, Gary.
Draw it, because I'll be accused of favouritism.
Right.
So
well,
shut your eyes and you do it.
You want me to draw it? Okay,
yeah, go on.
I'll draw it.
I'll trust you.
Oh, thank you. Mine's in here. Hang on. One's got the rigid on. Thank you. Right, okay. So, oh dear, Mr. Michael Phillips. Well done, sir. You just won a nice bottle of Moe. Thank you very much indeed, guys. Again, will you please just show your appreciation for Gary and Kevin?